Are you ready?
Everybody's been so quick.
You stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming today. Sometime we can allow topics from the floor that are not on the agenda. You're limited to 5 minutes. You have to. Okay. Oh, newbie already fell off.
Good afternoon, everyone.
There's this nice pole right here, nobody saw any. Nobody saw any. Good.
All right. Being none? All right. Oh. Go ahead. I wasn't trying to. You distracted us.
My
Darn, it didn't work.
Again, I want to protest the appointment of Mr. Rosengard here for Ryan. It's not that I hate you. Trust me. It's just about being factual on an application. You could have chose to answer it truthfully and been qualified to appointment. And I have the same objection to Mr. Kasner, who isn't here. It's just about integrity and honesty. And I believe that's an important thing to have. And I don't think those two gentlemen have it. I do want to comment about the proactive items about architectural standards and big storefronts. I really hope that you do something with that. I'd really like to add 2 other items to your list. One of them is the plaza. I really believe that the plaza is an item that you guys could take over and you guys could be the ones that spearhead the bricking, putting bricks in the plaza. And the other thing that I think that needs to start being talked about is a 50-year plan, like Scappoose is doing. I don't know where else it would come from, but from the planning commission. And the 50-year plan, I think, is a great idea. And one of those things that I think should be in a 50-year plan is merging our sewer water with Scappoose. Scappoose has huge infrastructure issues. St. Helens has huge infrastructure issues. We need a new water treatment plant if we're going to fill in the lagoon, which seems that we're heading in that direction. Whether I agree with it or not, I don't, I still have mixed feelings about it. That's up to the council to sort of convince us that that's the good plan. But if we do, I think we need a new treatment plant. It's $170 million. Scappoose needs $50 million for improvements in theirs. If we think regionally, and put a treatment plant in Warren, to me, it's the way to go. And again, we're not talking 5 years or 10 years, we're talking a 50-year plan. And I think that should come from this committee. We talk about that, and I think that they are receptive to that. And I hope that you guys think about it, put it on your agenda and add it to your proactive items. Thanks.
And I'm here today to talk about the Masonic Building, which we leased through for our haunted house and our store and our museum and our alien museum. And you can tell this is a kind of an old picture, but it has not really changed. It still pretty much looks the same on the outside except for the paint. And what we want to do is replace those old aluminum windows. I don't think those were probably the original windows anyway. They may be, but I don't know. Jacob, Gretchen, sorry, suggested that I just come in front of you. We want to replace these windows and we want to get your approval to do that since it's in the historic district. Maybe you can give them some insight on that building. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so It's not a historic landmark, but it is within the riverfront district, so it's subject to the architectural standards. Any kind of exterior change that requires a building permit, just changing windows would require the architectural review. So if we were to get a building permit for that, it would be something that we would bring before this body. I think what Tina's trying to do is understand the appetite pre-application to help decide which way the wind blowing and direct her efforts.
Yeah, we don't have to do the windows, we can do something else inside the building, but you can literally feel wind blow through the windows of the building, and we want to, you know, stop that waste of energy, basically, to keep the place warm. But if you don't really, you know, we probably would not put wooden windows in this building because it would be so cost crazy, but we would put, you know, appropriate color of, you know, R-rated windows to, comply with today's standards of, you know, building or, you know, for insulation factors, basically.
Is this part, these little transom parts at the top, are they separate from the bottom?
Yeah, they would stay there.
So you're talking about the second story windows, not the
Just-
ground level?
Just-
Yeah,
Got it, yeah. I
and
mean, it sounds like the windows are not doing window work, so they probably do need to be replaced. My personal feeling would be that if they're gonna be replaced, yeah, it makes sense to do that with something that fits the guidelines of the district.
Yeah, I would say fiberglass because you can paint it.
Yeah. It'll look like wood, yeah.
Otherwise, explore wood.
so is wood required on this building or not? That's what I need to
Have you
know.
looked at the architectural guidelines?
Well, that's what I was talking to Jacob about.
Sure. I mean, I can print out the window related page if you wanna look through it. The commission wasn't prepared to talk about that in particular tonight, so I don't know that anyone's prepared, but I can certainly provide the info to you, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks, a hot minute since I looked at the historic district guidelines, so I wouldn't want to comment off the top of my head.
The riverfront, right? Not the historic district.
I'm sorry, remember, yes. Inflating, yeah.
I think the Secretary of Interior discourages the use of vinyl.
Yeah.
So.
I think fiberglass, just again, off the top of my head, I think fiberglass would be
It
a
would,
good answer,
it would blend right into those transoms and
yeah.
probably be more cost effective.
Okay, so if it's fiberglass, then you would be inclined to like approve it. And then I'll look at what Jenny is gonna print out for me. And we'll make a decision based on, you know, is there anyone that can make a decision in the meantime before the next meeting?
It's
As I'm
really not only make a pre-decision, because we have to have the building permit and then.
Right,
bring it
okay.
for recommendation.
Okay,
We'll compare it with the architectural standards, so.
yeah,
You need to come up with something that meets the architectural standard and you have a little higher possibility.
yeah, for sure. Okay,
But
great.
sounds like you do have support.
Hopefully, or I'll just have new flooring.
Anyone else have a topic not on the agenda? Okay. Planning minutes from last month. Have any issues with it? I wasn't here. I read through it, though.
We'll move that we approve the planning commission minutes dated March 12th.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Jenny, are you online? Okay. Okay. And also the joint meeting minutes that was the president. I guess you can't really vote.
Yeah, I can't second, or move to approve, I wasn't here.
I'll move that we approve the joint planning commission, city council meeting minutes dated March 13th.
We have the votes to vote on.
So if he abstains from voting, at least he wasn't here. Is that enough? 3, 2? 3? You know?
Oh,
So we have a quorum now, but we wouldn't have a quorum in the votes. He wasn't present, I wasn't present.
yeah, I don't have my table. I can get it. I'll get it.
Can you vote if you weren't here? I think you have to,
If the vote means that we validate, that's what happens, and yeah, we can't, we were here.
we have to agree that if you read it over and.
I did read it, and it does make sense.
Brooke and I both
Yeah, we
voted on our first session on them.
We have approved those kind of votes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just wanted Jacob to run upstairs really fast for no reason.
Got it.
It's still different.
Never mind, we decided. Well, we will wait for him since he's doing it. Are you the staff on the next thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can start with that. Let's vote.
They decided they could vote, because they have in the past, voted on minutes, they read them and.
If the person has read it or listened to the video, or actually you didn't even watch the video, but. What do you think, Jacob? What do you see?
As I said, Brooke and I voted on our first session.
You needed your vote,
Yeah.
you were absent.
We were tripping.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a controversial one, so I don't think it'll get us in hot water and we're wrong somehow.
All right, so how do you vote?
Do we have a second?
We have a second.
Second
You seconded it?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, for what's worth. All right. Time is now 6:30. Can we start yet?
No.
6:05, okay. Time is now 6:13 PM and the public hearing is now open. This is a quasi judicial land use hearing. The subject of this hearing is a request for a variance. Subject property is identified on the county assessor's map as lot 4,500 on map 4N1W5AC. The applicant is Jillian Roy Wheeler. The owner is the same. Because quasi judicial proceedings require the observance of certain procedural formalities, we'll take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the commission wish to declare partial or potential or actual conflict of interest or bias in this matter? Seeing none. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an ex parte communication or site visits? No. Anyone in the audience object to the ability of a commissioner to make a fair decision on this regard? Okay. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows: required statements, staff report, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, neutral testimony, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, final questions, close of the record, deliberations, and decision. Following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code ORS 197.7975. The following is a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision. City of St. Helens Municipal Code 17.108.050. 1, the criteria for granting a variance. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria as described or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulation, which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue, including constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval in this hearing in person or in writing, or failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the approving authority an opportunity to respond to the issue, precludes appeal to LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue, and precludes an action for damages to the circuit court. Staff, report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're looking at a variance tonight. The location is 240 North Vernonia Road. I realized in the staff report, the address wasn't in there, but the map and tax lot was, so I apologize if that was confusing for anybody. So this lot is right across from Campbell Park's side entrance, so you enter Campbell off of Vernonia, and McMichael, but you kind of do that jog that Vernonia does. If you're familiar with the new sidewalk projects that went in along Vernonia, this house is on, part of Vernonia where the new sidewalks went in. So it's an L-shaped lot. And it's a large lot. It's, over 14,000 square feet, which is big for R7, which is the zoning, you know, it's almost double, or it is double the, minimum lot size. And it fronts two streets, so we call these lots corner lots because it fronts Mayfair Drive on the west, and then Vernonia Road on the south. So the main driveway is off of Vernonia where the sidewalks went. And their proposal is part of a larger remodel of the house. We got a building permit. You know, and normally we like to get a building permit and say, oh, yep, this looks great, but in this case, we were like, oh, shoot, there's a variance needed, the setback requirements aren't met. And so there's specific requests, if you look at the floor plan, you can get more detail, but the site plan on the right is what the existing conditions are, so there's an uncovered deck off of the back, they're gonna demo that, and then there's this existing garage that they're also demoing. So the site plan on the left is what they're proposing. So they wanna build a new addition off the back northward and extend the existing roof line. So that's the important part, is that this proposal relies on using that existing setback line of the house. And unfortunately, in this case, the Mayfair Drive setback is what we call an exterior side yard. Meaning it's a corner lot and we have different side yard setbacks for the sides that flank the street, the side street. So it's 14 feet in this case, and their house today is 8 feet. So it's a pretty minimal setback in the setback variance world. So that's the basic proposal. As with all variants, there's 5 criteria that are supposed to be met. And I can walk through those, but before I do, just to describe the proposal a little bit more, I want to show you the elevations. So, this is the as-is elevation. So this is the elevation of the house if you were looking from Mayfair Drive today. I'm sorry, down here. So notice this chimney here. And I'm going to show you the new proposed elevation. So that chimney is here. So if you were to draw a dotted line along here, the new elevation and the building addition is kind of this area back here. So this is looking from Mayfair. So that's the proposal. So the first criteria. You must find that the variance is not detrimental to the area. So for this one, you know, staff considered the biggest visual impact of the setback encroachment is along Mayfair Drive, because that's where the setback encroachment is. That's where you can really view the new addition. And so I noticed that there was some existing mature landscaping along there. So you can see it, I drew it in on here. There's some really good photos of it. Let me go to those. Staff report on page 2, I believe. Yeah, so this is the mature arborvitae from Mayfair. So the proposed addition, you can see the roof line here. This is kind of like where they would extend the roof line and the proposed addition would be. It's kind of a weird angle. Sorry about that. That's from Google Earth, because in winter, everything looks dead. And so it was nice to have the Google image. And then this is a photo I took. So this photo is taken if I was standing kind of back here in the yard looking towards Mayfair. So this is Mayfair in the background here. So I noticed that the landscaping stopped short of the extent of the addition. And so one thing to think about if you were worried about the visual impact, or if we had a ton of neighbors who were here saying, this thing is going to be right out front of my window, I hate this. you could consider screening, you know, you could consider landscaping to help with the visual detriment to the neighborhood. There's also this pretty large tree that may or may not be in the way of the, you know, I don't know what all the work is gonna entail. It's kind of too close to tell. So if they have to remove any landscaping, you guys could require that they replant any, you know, I don't know if some of these arborvitae have to get removed as part of the project. So just making sure that they either remain intact, get replanted, you know, that's something you guys could consider including. Any questions about that before I move on about the landscaping? Yeah.
But a couple of questions. Is Mayfair, does that dead into the park?
Question.
Different. Doesn't go across Vernonia.
Yeah, it doesn't extend to the park. It dead ends at Vernonia.
Okay, and then
That's, yeah.
Across the street.
is Mayfair improved the entire 50 feet?
That, yes, yep, the right of way extends to the edge of their property.
But is that,
There are no sidewalks.
what I'm getting at is, will it look like it's right on the street, or is if the street that it's flooding Mayfair is only, it's a 50-foot road, but it's only improved
I
to
see what you're asking.
how,
How,
then it doesn't appear like it's sitting on the
There is-
road.
yeah, so these arborvitae are in the right of way. So there will be a distance between this curb line and their property line, and then you're gonna have the 8 feet. I don't know exactly that distance because we don't have a landmark, but yeah. It's probably about 5 feet. So the next criteria, special and unique circumstances, so I just noted. Corner lots aren't rare in the city, but there's certainly a unique circumstance to this lot. There are less of them than just standard interior lots. The next criteria, so this one talks about maintaining the standards to the greatest extent that's possible. And I talk about this 20% reduction of setbacks that you can utilize without a variance. That would actually reduce their side yard down to 11.2. So it's 14 per the rules. You can use this reduction of 20% to bring it down to 11.2. And so, you know, the real variance request is for 3.2 feet. And so that helps them kind of get to that greatest extent reasonably possible. And then I also note they're meeting their rear and interior setbacks. So all the other setbacks of the proposal are met. So I think that helps meet that criteria. I'm just gonna bring the site plan back up again. I also note that they're meeting their lot coverage standards. Their minimum lot coverage is met. They have a really big lot. So even with all these outbuildings, they're still meeting their maximum lot coverage, excuse me. Existing physical and natural systems, there's no evidence that this proposal is gonna create an impact for stormwater, but the engineering department will have the opportunity to review that. Not self-imposed and minimum necessary to alleviate the hardship. So the county assessor shows that this house was built in 1930. They did not build it in this location. And, you know, they're not requesting more than the existing house and, you know, is already set back. So I feel like that can also help you meet that minimum necessary criteria. You know, they just want to extend the existing setback. So that's all I have. There's 3 conditions recommended for approval and then an optional one about landscaping for you to consider. Any other questions for me at this time?
All right, maybe we should hear from the applicant. You have anything you want to present? The applicant here?
Yeah, we're here.
Would you like to come present or argue with us and tell us we were wrong or?
She did a great job. Julie, 40 North Vernonia Road. As she said, the house was built in 1930. I think that Mayfair Drive was built in 1960s, early 70s. So, and just aesthetically, it just seems to make sense for our addition to just keep on going, and it will look like it had always been.
You're talking to
So-
them, they have to approve you,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so anyway,
Well, I,
we've been there for 31 years.
it wasn't in the packet, was a view of the front. And the front is on Vernonia, so,
Yes.
I looked at that. So that's your front of the house, so we're really talking about really views from the side, as far as the setback is concerned.
Right, so this is what the front looks like today, for those that didn't look, and then their proposed front. Is this right here.
The only thing that really changes is that covered area.
Here, yeah,
That's it. And our house sits quite a ways off
right,
of North Vernonia.
Yeah, those then, well, we can talk about discussion, but it's a corner lot, but it's not on the corner equal side, equal
No.
distance from from each street.
Correct.
That makes a difference.
Say.
You have a question for the applicant? All right, thank you. We have anyone's to they can testify in support of the application, sorry. Anyone who opposes it? No? Neutral testimony? Nope. All right. Any further questions of staff? Or the applicant? There are no further questions from the commission, no further responses from staff. The public record is closed and this matter is returned to the table for deliberations and oral discussion. Cool. Discuss. What I was making there is, so you think of a corner lot where it's really visible from both streets, the whole house, just it's out there, right?
Yeah.
This one's back a ways from Vernonia, you can see it, not all, but really seeing it all.
They're not decreasing what's existing, I mean, they're following that same line, so
Yeah.
it's already 8 feet from Mayfair.
That's why I was wondering how much
Yeah.
the street was improved, because it looked like it's all of a sudden sitting on the street,
Same distance from
so.
the property line. Then more than 8 feet.
For me, really, I don't think it's necessary to make them replant the arborvitae. Not the friendliest plant in the world for a neighborhood. I mean, if they take the fruit tree down, it'd be nice if they planted another tree, but I don't see any requirement to replace the arborvitae if they have to take it down.
I think overall it'll be an improvement.
So I'm supportive of the variance.
I certainly wouldn't require any particular sort of foliage replacement, but yeah, I think that, yeah, if the tree disappears, it can have, but that's pretty bad. Also, God.
It looked like it could be limbed, because it's a Y and the one side could be cropped and the other side seems fairly straight.
Yeah.
Vertical.
But no, I mean, the house was there before the road. It seems to make sense to not be weirdly constrained at that point.
And that's approved with before it wasn't approved, but we're at 8 feet anyway, so.
I don't have an issue with it. So we want to make look at Jenny's notes here. Any of these things that she hasn't read, you can consider.
this purview is optional. You could just take it out altogether if you don't care.
Well, we haven't heard anybody saying we don't want to lose that screen in the neighborhood here. You have a great feeling about your screening, that arborvitae?
I like it.
We just like it for privacy.
You like it?
That makes sense, yeah.
You're probably gonna keep it anyway.
Yep, I like.
We would like to, yeah.
Yep, I'd like to keep the fruit tree, I know
Fruit
that.
tree if we can. Hurt that.
Yeah,
Well, we're not against, you're not taking them out.
that all sounds good.
Okay, so let's just scratch that.
First criteria.
Yeah. Well, I'd move on those grounds to approve the variance.
We have a second?
I'll second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Um. The,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, out of curiosity, what kind of fruit tree is it?
It's a type of apple.
John Gold,
Oh,
and we
Good
planted
apple.
it like in 1999.
yeah.
And he says, where do you want it planted? Right there. Okay, so he's digging, and he says, there's a rock that looks like that. Oh, I think you better dig that out. It's.
She would pick a spot where there's a rock.
Neighbors to come and help, and my son, and it's 90 degrees, it was great.
It's that big of a rock.
Big boulder hiding in the ground. That's wonderful.
So well, because it has so much room to have its roots now.
Yeah, it really was on.
Leave it up to you, baby. So dig right there.
Yeah, and I think it's put up a couple years ago, like 30 foot floor to agriculture. Wow. So it was done. It's good.
so is this a recommendation? Okay, so we need a motion for the chair to sign.
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
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 Okay. The final written decision of the planning commission may be appealed to the city council. The notice of decision will be mailed to all persons who testified or submitted comments, and the appeal deadline will be included in the notice. If they come here and comment, they don't have standing to appeal. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, yeah.
You're gonna double your size of your house. Nice. Shoot house and it won't take away from it.
Yeah.
Here we got some discussion items. Planning Commission representation on Economic Opportunities Analysis Technical Advisory Committee.
So we've got our economic opportunities analysis that just kicked off for an update. And we have a technical advisory committee for it. We want someone from the planning commission to be on that. So economic opportunities analysis looks at our employment plans for the next 20 years. And analyze whether or not we can make changes to policy or we are deficient in employment lands. So that's industrial and commercial. So if you're interested in economic development in the city, I think that this would be a good commission or technical advisory committee to be on. There are only 3 meetings between July and November. They'll be evenly spaced. There's also going to be 2 joint planning commission and city council meetings that are involved in this. So even if you're not on this TAC, you'll still get to weigh in on the actual plan. That's all I have. You'll be with people working on economic development in the community. So we'll have the port, we'll have Columbia Economic Team, we'll have all the usual players. Main Street will be there. Small Business Development Center could go on. Business owners, we're gonna have a couple business owners, property owners, Brad with the marina. So
I vote for Carlson.
just one, leave one.
I'll do it.
Great. I think that's fitting because of your involvement on vacant storefronts too. Okay.
Cool, thank you. My wheelhouse. I think we're done. Development Code Amendments Draft Review 2024.
And I know you're excited about this. So this is to test
Haven't you done this?
Scott and Brooke. Really,
That's why I'm excited.
this is really testing your will.
Oh, well, okay.
Or will to leave?
I'm excited about these years becoming consistent. This is great.
Oh, yeah,
It'd be a good time.
the validity period.
Yeah.
So yeah, excitement. That's what we need, excitement.
Hey, let's do it.
Okay, so
Got for us.
usually what we do, well, here's the plan. So we discussed this a little bit. We've drafted the code. Now we want to vet it with the planning commission before we bring it to the council for their blessing to proceed legislatively and go with the formal process. It's been a few years since we've done this. But usually what we do is we just start going through the text and any questions and stuff. And we don't have to do it all today. We can take as many meetings as we need. So I'm not gonna be here, we're gonna be here until midnight.
There's snack.
We gotta do stuff like that, like the,
Well, you tell us now, you know, we already studied it all, so.
I mean, if we can make it through it all, that's great, but I don't wanna pressure anybody
Yeah,
for a marathon.
I don't think we'll be getting through it all.
And it's a lot of stuff, and there's also a question in there, and it's a question that, you know, we can answer, we can talk about at the end, in the middle, at the beginning. And that has to do with the single room occupancy type of development where you have a building, well, where it's like dorms, as David mentioned meetings ago. So you have sleeping rooms which are rented out, but you have shared lavatory and or kitchen facilities. At the joint meeting, for those of you who were there, the mayor had an idea of having a detached single room occupancy. So we're talking about detached dwelling units, so each unit has complete independent living, sanitation, cooking, sleeping, facilities, so all the stuff that's in there. The detached single room occupancy would be like, kind of like a hut that may not have a shared lavatory or kitchen, and that would be in another building or a central one. In talking with our building official about it, because it's brainstorming. There's the energy code and Oregon's energy code. I've heard a lot of contractors complain about it. I know it's something that's not loved, but it's to make buildings efficient. But as you have more detached structures, that's more of the energy code burden. Another thing that building official pointed out is you would have to maintain accessibility between the sleeping building and the building that has the amenities. So it may not be something practical, and it would require some recalibration of the code. And it's something that I wanted to include in the discussion, since it was talked about at that joint meeting, to see if you know, are you think it's a feasible amendment to include or not? And like I said, we can dive into this and talk about it. Cause I know we have a lot of different topics to talk about. But before we get to the council, I want to chew on that.
I was like going back to the 20s and 30s with the auto camps, with the cabins and the
Yeah, no, it's
single bathroom and.
yeah, it sounds very cabin focused. Is the goal that the mayor has there to just try to increase the options for people to do housing?
I'm sure that's what the mayor has in mind.
Yeah.
Because when we have the duplex rules, you know, one of the questions we had to ask ourselves, okay, do we stick with, and this was, just to back up a little bit, we had to allow duplexes anywhere we allow single family dwellings, and we can't place an additional burden due to the fact that they're duplexes. And so one of the questions we posed was, okay, do we stick with our conventional duplexes, 2 units, 1 building, or do we say it can also be just 2 detached units on a lot? And one of the things Rick said was, well, why not? It provides the options. Nobody argued with that. And we went through the process and, you know, the community really didn't push back. So that's why I think it's just brainstorming options for people. I think it comes down to whether or not it's a practical option that would actually be used, and that's kind of where.
I don't know if anyone would use it. I don't know. That to me is a separate question from whether it should be forbidden, but
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone would actually take them up on it.
The difference between cottage cluster and mayor's recommendation is shared kitchen, shared
yeah.
facilities and
You
stuff.
have a lot of covered breezeways probably. If you're gonna.
They don't have to be covered.
Year round,
Oh,
get to the bathroom.
We wouldn't require that.
Rain. Oh,
But you'd have to have.
It would have to be,
Rail.
yeah, right. ADA, not,
we don't,
it's not
I
typically.
like cottage cluster housing, but I don't like the idea of the,
Well, how many
Yeah.
huts per bathroom that you'd have to have restrictions, like if you have 4 huts, you have a bathroom, if you have 6, maybe 2 bathrooms and 2 kitchens.
That's a good question. I'm guessing building code would drive that.
Do we have analogous restrictions or guidelines for just single room occupancy?
Well, we don't have nothing now.
We don't have anything, right?
And state law has included that in needed housing, which is just a term that used to be real narrow, but now it's pretty broad. As Oregon continues to advocate for housing and production and all that stuff, easing up on the rules.
would lot coverage still apply on all of it?
Oh, yeah, that's not changing, yeah.
I'm not opposed to this renting out rooms, but to have my neighbor, if they have can meet the lot coverage requirements, put in a bunch of small looking sheds and people are,
Tiny houses wrap around.
I can see when your teenager gets obnoxious, he has his own little building out there that he comes in and takes a shower. But is that what, I'm not trying to be a joke. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
I mean, it would be similar, yeah.
ADU,
It's-
not a full ADU, but
Sleep,
a room.
a fort,
Yeah,
But isn't it just an SRO?
House.
It's not.
but it's, right now it's SRO if it's one building. It's not some separate building.
Well, nothing's preventing someone to build a room that has living space in their yard now, it's just an
Yeah,
accessory
sure.
structure. So that could happen, they could build 3 accessory structures.
So what's the difference?
It's the rentable product, and by definition, and I didn't review any of this, today to refresh my memory, so all this is from memory from working on this, starting in December. But the single room occupancy use type doesn't become that until it's at least 4 units.
Okay,
Now, if we wanted to create our own rules for the detached, we could have some new definition like hut living or something like that. But this is where it starts to get clunky incorporating it into the code.
you gotta park all those people.
Yeah, those
have
standards.
to do with
Leaving the loan.
our revenue.
Enter.
What I'm picturing is if I have a lot in town, and I can put a small building with a kitchen and a bathroom and showers on it, and then I put a bunch of grandpa buildings on there. I can rent those out and then have this little, is that right? Like,
Yes, but building code's still gonna require the energy code, and so just building any hut or any shed may not itself cut it.
Right. I mean, my gut inclination would be to say. Once we get whatever. Ordinance regulations we want for single room occupancy would be to say, okay, if you want to. Have a detached single room occupancy, that's great. I don't think anyone's going to do it, because I think that it's going to be more troublesome and expensive, but I wouldn't be inclined to tell them they absolutely can. I mean, to me, the impacts are the same, whether you've got a walkway connecting your dorm room to the kitchen versus a hallway connecting your dorm room to the kitchen.
no, my son and his wife went glamping, somebody out in Warren had a house, and they have a little cabinet out there. Probably had a bathroom, but it didn't have a kitchen,
I mean, to me, cottage clusters are
and they rented them,
a bunch of cute little
that's a different.
1,000 square foot little cottages and maybe people with like. Interests and things all live together, and if they're gonna share anything, it's gonna be like they do it successfully up in the Seattle area. They have like a picnic area covered and which. Seems reasonable, but. No, I don't like it. I don't like the detached part of just single room occupancy. And I always look at it from a resale, since I'm a real estate broker.
Oh, yeah, I can't, again, it just seems like a nightmare to deal with in
Yeah.
practice.
Well, do you wanna live next door?
I mean, living next door to that versus living next door to one where they're connected by hallways doesn't make a difference to me. I can see it being a lot harder to sell because you can just do less with that space.
I'm thinking more like,
I guess it might be a little louder, right? If people are walking in the outdoors.
I can think
Congregate
there would be
together outside.
objections to
Yeah.
your neighbor being that it would
Yeah.
redo, it would affect
do that.
people's property values, I think, so I'm against it.
That's, yeah, that makes
Inside
sense.
a bedroom, inside a house is totally different if you're renting than.
Well, and even if you've got the kitchen and the common areas, are indoors, you still have people walking back and forth. They'll be having conversations and whatnot. So yeah, that makes sense.
Seems like it will affect the livability and the property values of the adjacent property owners.
Okay, I think, I didn't wanna take the whole meeting up, it was just a brainstorm.
Yeah.
But I just ignore it either. Okay. So I think with that, hopefully you remember some of the stuff we talked about, but if you don't, ask questions as we go through it. I think if you want to just start going through this amendment document, towards your begin.
Yeah.
Am I scrolling to the right thing? Am I trying to get to the red and green? This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're dealing with several different topics. And because it's the code, it's not organized by topic, it's organized by order, so we'll be jumping around. Okay. So the first section is definitions.
Where'd you jump to?
It's on page 38. Oh, it's the 38th page. That probably isn't helpful on
Say.
paper.
It goes
All right.
down to the 11 of them.
You gotta go past these.
Yeah, it's,
There you go.
it's the beginning of the green and red.
11 to 42.
32.
Houses.
So this is housekeeping. And the main thing was, we dealt with the houseboats, boathouses a little bit, and I noticed that, houseboats doesn't have a space. Actually, two houseboats. I'm like, well, that should be fixed. And then just looking at some other definitions, I noticed a reference to chapter 15. And so that's just really improving that definition.
Remember that some Japanese boys, I said, this is a boathouse and that's a houseboat. The boat in the boathouse and the houseboat you lived in. Does that fit?
And we do have those two definitions, and that's why it was weird that it says two houseboats, because we do have that houseboat definition. That word is specific, so it's like, well, I mean, you could just put a space house, space boat, and it would be fine. But there's more things than boats, there's other waterborne vessels, and so.
I see.
Which is the cleanup thing. I didn't expect controversy.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one,
It is.
childcare. I'm anticipating that the childcare rules are not gonna be controversial. We're not doing anything fancy, we're just complying with law. And in this case, we are updating our definitions to do that. And so this first one, childcare center, that in the childcare world, there's the type that happens in a home, the residential setting, and then there's the more commercial setting. And so childcare center is just the definition of the greater commercial setting. Below that, you see we have a definition of childcare facility, which is already in the code. And per state law, that is a broader definition, which can include the care home, the childcare center, And then interestingly includes all these other random words. And that's, I think, when the state looked at that, they looked at various codes which classify these childcare centers, oh boy, these different things. This is actually something that kind of drove me nuts for a long time, because it's called a lot of different things in our code, and it's finally gonna be, this is what it is, and so we're not having to guess, oh, day nursery and daycare. It's all one thing.
A little circular definitions here though. Childcare center means a childcare facility, and then skip down, childcare facility means,
These are two separate definitions.
I know, but the care facility includes childcare center.
Yes. And because and we're gonna face this also when we talk about manufacturing.
Which childcare center is a type of childcare facility.
Yeah, so you have this, it's an umbrella.
Within it, okay.
Yeah, the umbrella
Yeah, you
definition
said it.
and then the specifics under that.
Okay, good.
All childcare centers are facilities, but not all facilities are.
Right.
The commercial setting, yeah.
So just basic compliance with state law.
Good deal.
So the next definition, and this is one of the things that we've been wanting to do since 2019. And it's evolving beyond the duplex where, okay, the duplex will allow 2 detached units, but our multifamily definition, and that's 3 or more units on a lot, is still the old school, must be in buildings with 3 or more. And so what we're trying to do here is say, okay, it can be 3 or more units and not necessarily 3 in a building, but we're going to define where we want those to be attached and where we want those, or where we are okay with those being the detached product. And that's what this definition does. Is it relieves that restriction and sets up for us to look at that when we look at the zoning, what's allowed in the zoning.
I think that makes sense. Is there any potential for confusion insofar as, so if we've got 3, we need to have 3 or more dwelling units to qualify, right? And if all 3 of them are attached, it's an attached dwelling unit. If all 3 of them are detached, it's detached. What if 2 of them are attached and 1 of them is detached? Do we need to, is that covered by the existing language?
I think so, because it talks, when we get into that, and remember that when we're getting into the zoning, where it says, maybe detached or attached. If it says has to be attached, then we know we can't do detached.
Got it. Okay. Then that works, just wanted to make sure.
There are other uses for.
Okay, in addition to, yeah, got it.
And we've had past planning commissioners who'd love to have spelling errors, punctuation errors, so don't be bashful.
I put out here 2 periods and minutes here.
We're not talking about the minutes.
Oh, I'm ready for them. Oh.
Okay, so then we're finally on the next page. Page 2 out of 32, the project. Mark is, did you know that this is hell for you?
I'm aware.
Yeah. All right, so family childcare, this is just the version in a home, matching the state definition.
More than 16 children, I.
I wrote the same thing in red. Like, whoa.
So the next one is just the old definition, which is no longer relevant, so we're getting rid of it. So I talked about the umbrella definition for daycare, and then manufactured dwelling is the umbrella definition for a variety of type of manufactured homes. And I've been doing this since 2001. I've worked for cities and counties, and it wasn't until I dived deep into this, because if you ask me just I don't know, in November, what does a manufactured dwelling mean? Well, that's just a manufactured home. And I would have been wrong. And I didn't realize I would have been wrong until I really, really dug into it. So that's the umbrella definition. And all these residential trailer, mobile home, manufactured home, they're relevant because we have to allow them in manufactured home parks, and some of them are better defined as we get later into the definitions.
Well, manufacture, okay, I guess I'll wait. Manufactured dwellings, where does those fit in the code? Is this umbrella kind of term? I mean, is there some of these things that are not like the other? In other words, can all lots have manufactured dwellings? Or some lots have manufactured homes and some not have residential trailers,
That's correct. Yeah, residential trailers,
or homes or whatever?
yeah, they would only be allowed in a manufactured home park.
Or as a yes.
And so some of that, we get into the mobile home zoning chapter.
Is that defined by anything that's not real property, all personal property? A residential trailer, mobile home or manufactured home.
Yeah, residential,
Manufactured home can become real property, but I don't know how the other two would become real property.
and residential trailer, I think, is within a certain time period.
Something that still stays on wheels.
And I think it predates the mobile home, which go up to maybe the 70s, 76. We'll see that pretty soon.
I have a 1950 travel trailer. That would, that would predate the mobile home.
Yeah, that could be the residential trailer definition, if I'm remembering it right. But interestingly, you talk about personal property, you commonly think of RVs being that, and we have to allow RVs in manufactured homes as if they were the principal dwelling unit, but not on residential lots. So the freedom of allowance for manufactured home parks is actually pretty broad. I didn't realize how broad it was. So the next definition, this is important when we look at our multi-dwelling standards, which some of you who've been with us a long time, we dealt with these a lot. So right now, when you have multifamily, that building is subject to additional standards, such as the distance of walkways from windows. We had a variance on that at our last meeting. There are standards about, okay, if you have some big old building, every 30 feet, you're supposed to have 2 out of 3 things, which includes extensions of at least 8 feet, recessions of at least 8 feet, or roof changes of at least 3 feet, something like that. And so when thinking about the cottage cluster and allowing detached, it's like, well, if we just call it multifamily, that's gonna be unfair to small buildings, and it's gonna be really impractical. This is something Jenny mentioned when we were talking about this sometime in the last 5 months. So I'm like, well, son of a gun. So the solution was to make sure multi-dwelling structure is defined. And that's when you have the 3 units attached, and that's when some of those higher standards apply. That way you're not picking on the individual detached units. The theory being those are gonna be larger, and that's when you start kicking in those other standards. So that's the important component of that definition.
That works.
Prefabricated structure, the next definition, so. One of the state laws that came out was we are supposed to allow prefabricated structures, where we're supposed to allow manufactured dwellings, and that's a new thing. So it's kind of like, modular units, I think is the, if we're gonna use more common terms. That's just, state law says we have to have it, so we have a definition for it.
They include a pre-manufactured log house. They build it somewhere else and they take it apart and they build it on your property.
Good question. So,
Vendel House,
I think
I don't think.
the assembled using closed construction offsite would probably get your log house out of this definition.
Yeah.
It's construction.
I think this is more where you've got like I see this sometimes with shipping container buildings where they build each shipping container as a part and then they just sort of plop them down on top of each other in section.
So if you're building it out of Legos, it doesn't come prepared.
No.
But if someone is taking those Legos and super gluing them together, okay, here's your Lego unit. And that's a pre-manufactured unit.
No log houses.
So no, and I think the log.
Log house is safe.
Are we gonna address 3D printing houses?
Yeah.
That's the next stage.
This is part of the, CLT technology, like they're trying to build housing, and so there's all these new technologies.
Yeah.
That are.
Panelized.
Yeah, panels. I've been to a couple sessions at planning conferences, or one session in particular where they were talking about new technologies, and I think the state is just trying to acknowledge that.
I'm saying it's sub-assembly, so it's not necessarily fully closed, it's sub-assembly, so you could build a log house further.
If it's relocatable more than 8 and 1/2 feet wide and designed for use as a single family dwelling.
Yeah.
Sub-assembly, every single log is a sub-assembly.
Okay, so let's talk about shrooms, psilocybin service center. We talked about those new rules and having them as conditional use permit. Or conditionally permitted in certain zoning districts, so we have to have a definition. The next one, residential trailer, that was one of the type of manufactured dwellings as defined. And yeah, so like I said, it refers to older stuff. Before 1962, it's hard to imagine that we're gonna see any of those for our manufactured home parks. I've seen,
There's some vintage trailers,
I've encountered
nice ones out there.
maybe a couple of them that weren't so nice, when I worked for the county. And you go out to the sticks and, wow, this thing's old, and then see some stick-built addition on it. But in the cities I've worked for, it's not about those old ones. But it's in the law, so we gotta put it there. And then one more definition, and this is the single room occupancy definition. And if you note, residential development with no fewer than 4 attached units. And so attached is an important part of that definition.
Interesting that it says lockable.
Yeah. Probably a good idea, but not something I would necessarily anticipate it being that specific, but great. Love it.
Yeah, it's interesting that a development code would be that specific.
Yeah.
But we didn't just make it up.
Yeah. Good stuff.
As the world becomes more complicated for us, each legislative session.
Yeah.
All right, so we survived definitions. And Scott and Brooke had not ran out screaming, so
Yeah,
pretty good sign.
we're on page 13.
Good job, us.
Okay, so this page is very much worth talking about. Yeah, so notices of decision by the director when we were looking at the notice requirements. I think this came out of the validity periods.
Actually, I think Christina called me one day and said, what do I do for, time extensions? Do I send notice to everybody who received notice with the original decision? And I thought, I don't know, what did we do for the last one? What does the code say? And then the code was just silent on it, so we just did what we did before. But for example, say you have a subdivision. The notice area could be pretty large, 300 feet, and they apply for a time extension. You send it out to the 200 people that were originally notified that they did a time extension. That's a big, that's kind of a big deal to figure that out. So having code that guides that is what this is doing.
So the question happened to occur while we were, working on this. I'm like, well, sounds like a good housekeeping thing to add.
Thanks, Christina.
I have a question about that. So when you send the original notice out, it was for people to come and be able to comment, right?
The public hearing.
But the time extensions, they're not gonna be commenting.
Yeah, but they can still appeal it, right?
They could appeal it. For example, it keeps them informed if they were concerned about it.
I get that.
And indiscriminately, because you're sending it to everybody. And then it can be appealed. There's, a few boxes we have to check. The key one being, the laws haven't changed. And so it would give people the opportunity to say, hey, staff, you're just helping them out. This has changed. I disagree with this. And so, just like any land use decision.
But-
Well, that just says it's wrong because it says this, it's civil.
Be able to appeal, if they weren't present, during the hearing, because they wouldn't have standing, would they?
We're not appealing the original decision, they'd be appealing the time extension,
Extension,
which has separate criteria for approval, which Jacob just mentioned one of them.
okay. Okay, got
So,
it.
so it would.
Right.
And I think it's more just educational, right?
Oh, I
Like,
think-
why isn't there any movement on the public improvements yet? And then, oh yeah, okay, they have 2 more years or they have 1 more year. Do
I
it.
I think it's good for the city to do that.
It's transparent.
And, in all my years of doing this, never had a time extension challenged, but, so I don't have an experience. Well, it was one time.
Somebody proposed it, they would be happy that it wasn't extended.
Right.
Not happy if it was extended.
Someone will get around to doing it at some point.
So really, that's everything under chapter 1724 has to do with that. So that is Christina Sullivan's text amendment addition.
First one.
Thank you, Christina.
Not even help.
It's like listening to Beethoven when your intelligence is confuses. Okay, so now we get to the zoning districts. And if you get lost, I did include the table, at least in the electronic file. If you want to look at that, you have it in your packet as well. I know the table is pretty complex, but it summarizes the zoning stuff that we're about to embark on. So R10. Luckily, this is really simple. Childcare, it's really the childcare stuff. And allowing single room occupancy. And what state law says is anywhere we allow a single family dwelling, we have to allow single occupancy development type with a maximum of up to 6 units. So that's where that comes from.
That makes that pretty easy.
So that's pretty straightforward. If you were really geeking into the details, the provisions for childcare say that we cannot impose a conditional use permit and generally has to be permitted use. And so, well, hey, planner, what the heck is this? it says child care center, it's still under conditional uses. Cause that prohibition is not in the residential district for the commercial grade childcare. And since it was already in the R10 zone, well, let's just rename it instead of just deleting it. So that's why it's there. It was there before as a conditional use permit. And so we're keeping it there. So that's the non-residential one that can allow more than, I think the 16. And a place where we could, that we're not restricted, by the conditional use permit prohibition. And you'll see that in a few places, including the next, zone R7. And it's pretty much the same as R10. Which nobody screamed foul on, so I'm assuming we can move on. So the R5 zone. Under permitted uses, pretty much the same thing. Conditional uses, we start getting a little bit more stuff going on here. So first of all, the child care center thing, conditional use. Multi-dwelling units. So this is where we're saying it can be attached housing and or detached housing. So this answers your question. So we're saying you have 3 or more units, you want to mix and match? Cool.
You could do a combo.
Yeah, you could have a 2 attached, 1 detached, 1,000 attached with 2 detached, however you want to do it. So that provides that flexibility. And then the single room occupancy 6-unit thing. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated when we get into the standards, because state law says that where we allow multifamily, and this is why this wasn't in the previous zoning districts, because they are not multifamily friendly districts, but R5, we start to get into that. And it says that the number of units allowed has to correspond with what you allow for multifamily with some base. And I can't explain it better than that because I didn't review all the rules. But it's captured by this amendment or this sentence here.
Yeah, no question for you.
And then yeah, I think that's all we need to talk about there.
So can I ask a question that might help explain this better, Jacob?
Sure.
So so basically the density is the same as apartments for single room occupancies. That the gist?
Once you get above 6, it's 6 because that is what's allowed for single family, and the 5,000 square feet is the minimum lot size for single family. And so it doesn't make sense to, well, if you have more, we're just gonna impose a greater burden. So the first 6 is based on the square footage required for detached single family or duplex use. And then once you go beyond that, that's when the multifamily stuff starts to kick in. So it's kind of a weird calculation at first.
Be 7,500. At least.
Yeah, you would reference the 5,000 square foot base plus 2,500 for each multi-dwelling unit thereafter.
For the single family.
Or single family.
6, yeah.
For more than 6.
Yeah.
So, but the base is 6. So you'd be doing 7, 8, 9, yeah.
And it's good we're adding this flexibility, but it makes the code more complex.
Yeah, I'm always reading this like, so someone new working for the city of St. Helens and they have to decipher this. Like, is there a way we can simplify this in layman's terms so that people understand it both on the executing end and the, implementation end? And I don't think there is, unfortunately. It's,
On this, if it was you can have two dwellings on a 5,000 square foot lot. So would that still be applicable with the single room occupancy, if you could do on each dwelling?
If each building was 4 or more, then it would constitute a single room occupancy. And as long as you can meet the density. But it has to be 4 or more to meet that definition. So let's say you have 2 dwellings. One of them is just a normal dwelling, family lives in it, no rental units, anything like that. But then the second one has three rooms with locks. It's only 3, so it's still single family dwelling. But once it's 4 or more, now that new category comes into play. And you have both. That's kind of where your question is going.
Well, I'm just wondering about, what the ramifications are, but I wasn't applying the minimum 4.
Oh,
You're just thinking houses.
yeah, so that's the added complexity. Is it's not a duck, doesn't quack like a duck till there's 4 quacks.
That's a quartet. So to Jenny's point though, at the state, we work on revising our rules and amending them over and over all the time. And at one point, we had rules that were like, it would be for single room occupancy, the minimum size, blah, 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 and based on the same minimal size for multi-row units, parentheses, minimum size should be 5,000 square feet, plus as space plus 20, you add that whole language again. And we started paring it down because the rules got so thick and big, right? So it would be better to, if you're just looking for the single room occupancy, you go to single room occupancy and everything's there. I'd have to refer back to something else, but it makes it so thick and wordy. It is a little more convoluted this way that you have to go, okay. Based on the minimum lot then, okay, is that the minimum lot up there? Doesn't really say that that's for multi units, the minimum. So anyway, that's just to think about it. If you said the next person come along, how they can figure it out. How can you make it clear without putting too many words in? So you're saying based on the same minimal lot size, where does it say the minimum lot size for multi-dwelling units?
Right here.
It doesn't say that. It's still referring back to the first sentence again. So you have to go all the way back to the first sentence for dwelling the minimum size. So a couple more words, maybe the minimum size shall be. So just use.
But it is all in the same paragraph.
I know it's in there.
To another
It's
page.
it's just something to think about. How much do you do that?
Yeah, I think we also use this a lot, so we always look for minimum lot size under 4A, because in each zoning district, minimum lot size is always addressed under 4A for all types of so we're just kind of used to looking in this section. So, yeah, I know it's gonna be in there, you just gotta like tease it out.
So this is a truly pedantic point, but in service of your earlier request for us to point things out. So the phrasing you've got is the single dwelling unit detached and duplex. Feels like that should either be the single dwelling unit detached and duplex categories, or it should be single dwelling units detached and duplex. The by itself seems weird. It's doing something odd. Because you're not referring to like
Yeah.
the one and only single detached unit, you're referring to the whole category.
Oh, you just want this removed?
It's,
Take it out.
well, it's actually a category, single dwelling unit, detached, and duplex categories.
Yeah, I would put categories after duplex. I think that's the easiest way to make it make sense.
Before the and 2500.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where's the categories, what is it, what are all those things? In plan reuse would be uses. Not categories.
I think some of the other zones, read a little bit better. As far as the singular plural stuff.
Just gonna go over this for the next few minutes, the whole document, and he'll get back to you. That's good.
Okay, so the,
Maybe add uses as Jenny. Speaking plan reuse.
Yeah, or add uses here. Duplex uses would go right there.
I'd rather add uses than get rid of the that. I
Okay,
feel like the
yeah.
that is correct.
Yeah. That is good.
which is,
In your leisure, you can look back at the other zonings and see if it works there too.
Okay.
We move on.
My darn.
we get into lot width. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Oh, yeah, I see.
There aren't anymore.
Here, let's see. On 530.
A lot of just adding single room occupancy. 6 units. And you have the single room occupancy with 6 units or less is more into the single family category. With more than 6, it puts into more multifamily, so that's why you have that's the distinction you have there. And then at the bottom of 5. And this is why we added that definition of multifamily structures. Because that reference to 1796-180, which is in the site development review chapter, which has a lot of the stuff I mentioned at the beginning. The extensions, recesses, roof stuff. That's kind of, and the, path, distance from windows, etc. Is captured in that section. Ready for AR?
Yes. It's getting really exciting now.
Let's see. This tells you.
Make it interesting sound. So family childcare, no difference, multifamily, maybe attached or detached. Now, in the apartment residential zone, it's more friendly to multifamily. And so that's why in the permitted use category, you have the maximum of 6 units and then the more than 6 units, both in the permitted uses. And then the child care center, the commercial version is still conditionally permitted. And then the standards are pretty similar. Except we go down to, oh, no, never mind. They're pretty similar to the last zoning district as far as the standards.
It's really adding single room occupancy to everything.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice adding it, but it makes it complex, but we won't forget its possible use because it's covered throughout. So at least when people ask, you don't forget, no. Anything else on that page? You're already ahead of it.
I just, I'm not hearing anything, so I just keep going.
It's just really adding single room occupancy.
And they're all
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. A lot of redundancy.
Yeah.
Okay, so mobile home residential. One of the same stuff we've been talking about, as far as uses. We are changing, we're just adding that mobile home part, dwelling part. Mobile home is kind of a older term.
Right.
And I think that was a relic of the past. They're still out there, but we, manufactured dwellings, more modern ones, so we want to include that in there. So that's the one thing different. That's different in this zoning district as far as the uses from the ones that we just talked about. So now we're gonna start getting into our mixed use districts, the more stuff. So Stuyvesant Center is where they allow all that stuff. So childcare again must be allowed. And when we're talking about dwellings in the zoning district, multifamily is a conditional use permit, so we're defining how the residential use form is better. And what G is saying is, okay, you can have your normal detached single family dwelling. You can have attached single family dwellings, and that's your row housing with one dwelling on a separate lot, but they're tied at the hip by a shared wall. And we also start talking about dwellings above permitted uses. And so that's your typical, you have your first floor, that's non-residential, and then the stuff above is residential. And the reason we're differentiating from 2 units versus more than that, and there's the second sentence which points you to the next chapter, is that's the difference between a permitted use and a conditional use permit. The number of units above permitted. Or above non-residential use. And it's kind of assumed, but in dealing with attorneys over the years, I still didn't have the words, so there's no question. And that's why when we're talking about uses above permitted, we're saying they have to be attached. Now, naturally, they're gonna be the same building, they're gonna be attached. But since we're creating that differentiation among the zoning districts, we want to be consistent with it. So that's why that's a little bit more wordy.
Okay, the travel trailer parks at the end. Well, that's actually different than the manufactured dwelling definition, right? Because there were really like park units. The old trailers or park
They
units.
are different, yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
And so your travel trailer park would not be, something that would allow
we call them,
all of the things that we make in the residential trailer, it's for RVs.
we call them RV parks.
Yeah, it's just this, our code calls RVs travel. Travel.
Down by the river.
Yeah. Any questions on the permitted uses?
No.
I think we can evaluate how fun this is by the amount of Cheez-Its that Dan eats. Okay, so conditional uses.
Well, he thinks we're gonna be here a long time, so he's stocking up.
And
Wake up.
when, you know, when you wanna throw in the towel, just let me know.
We could pick a time. You guys wanna pick a time and say 4:30 or 8:30 or whatever? Or is there,
Midnight's fine. What else is on our agenda for this session?
Nothing real.
So we're just, yeah.
you have something to go ahead and,
Move through it.
or do you wanna, was there some section you'd like to see get through? That's a good breaking point.
I hadn't really thought about it, I just, you know, this has been, you know, some of this we've been thinking about for 5 years. You know, dealing with development, and then, you know, winter. I wanted to start it in November, we didn't have a chance until December, and so December through March was the effort to get a draft code, and so I've just been kind of taking each step as it comes. So my plan was to get through as much as we can.
Okay.
And you know, if you feel like there's a place to end, probably a natural place would just be where we move on to a different chapter
That's a lot of potential breaks to
to do that.
Cool, chapter.
I mean, we can see where we're at 8.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
I just, I don't wanna do this with burnt out minds.
Yeah.
So,
We don't have an half total, so.
and we don't have any strict deadline to complete it. I wanna complete it this year.
Yeah.
And hopefully the next 6 months, but
It's a good day since we didn't have a lot of hearings.
we had that date and we were just marathoning it.
Yeah.
Okay, so conditional uses. So this is where another category we want to talk about, dwellings on the same level as non-residential use. That could be on the ground floor, it could be on the upper floor. And here we're saying, you know, dwellings on the same level as a non-residential use and mixed use could apply to both attached housing and detached housing. So for example, let's say you have a large lot in Holton. And there's a cool old house on it. And someone wants to build a commercial building next to it. This means that we don't have to punish the house for being there. Oh, you can't have the house in the building too, you gotta get rid of the house. This is saying you can have that. With the conditional use permit.
Yeah.
So again, flexibility. And here we go, our first zoning district, where we're talking about magic mushrooms, psilocybin service center, conditional use. And then a bunch of stuff that we talked about. in the other zoning district.
So you're saying travel trailer park is the same as RV park?
Yeah, that's the St. Helens definition of RV park are travel trailer parks.
Which seems antiquated. It's like, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, that wouldn't be a hard update.
Recreational vehicle, comes a lot of stuff.
Yeah, travel trailer just makes me think of, you know, Lucy and Desi in the one.
That's right, yeah.
You feel strongly enough that maybe we could try to fix that?
I don't personally, but they might know.
If we're gonna update it, let's bring it up to 2024.
No, that wouldn't be
To
too.
the extent it makes it easier for people to understand, great. It's a find and replace, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a lot of work.
Yeah.
So travel trailer is now a recreational vehicle?
Yeah. Yes, it could be motorhomes or trailers or.
It changes the order, so there is some tedious.
Side by
That
side,
goes here, now the letters need to change.
side by
So
side,
there's that stuff.
all of a sudden incorporate all those other kind of.
You know, fifth wheel, all this, yeah. I mean, I have an issue with RV parks being permanent trailer parks, basically, but. Just because it's other wheels on them. They have skirts and planters,
Just
and,
the long-term occupancy of it.
yeah,
And St. Helens, used to have on the books that there was a limit. But there was a state law that says we can't do that.
Yeah, didn't know that.
That's something we fixed, I don't know, a few years ago.
We just have to move out for a day, then move back in.
It was like 30 days, but you know, is that really practical for us to enforce?
but technically, we have another 1996 flood, they could pull them out before they get flooded out. If they would get flooded, the first set at least.
Didn't get flooded in the last one in 96.
Flood-
Down
It flooded there,
Yet, though.
it definitely flooded there.
here?
You couldn't get to you couldn't get to the turnaround.
Use of that I got.
Really, I drove down there and I just remember
That's the thing.
that circle thing.
Hmm.
Maybe it got worse.
But I mean, I wasn't here, I was.
My
Well,
wife's car, you started, it was, the water kept creeping up to the back doors, finally got it going, before it got flooded.
I've got a video in my phone.
Really? The whole parking lot, those condos,
Yeah, the whole ground floor of those condos.
the condos over here got flooded.
Maybe we'll have to have 96 flood show and tell. So
Maybe not this.
well, you take away your rules and regulations and you get cranked.
Okay, so you ready for highway commercial? So this is when we're actually just changing the purpose statement. Partly because there's some antiquated stuff on here that Jenny and I have been, what the heck does this mean? And that's the catering to motorists aspect. So you'll see, if you're looking at close, we're getting rid of the language about catering to motorists. Because it's just, how do you apply that? It's a relic of the past. It's basically commercial property along the highway.
Makes sense.
So the childcare stuff. You see catering to motorists going away.
Wow, that's bizarre language. Right, so if your insurance office isn't on the highway, how will you respond to accidents?
You can't have a real estate office on the highway because it's not for insurance claim.
That's right.
They have
It's
garages a lot of times,
What was that, Dan?
they have garages.
Oh, great.
There you go.
Yeah, it's really kind of absurd. But under conditional use uses, this is important in the zoning district. So right now, if we look at the other zoning districts, there's a density standard. There's a maximum density standard. And the highway commercial zone is silent. There's nothing, there's no maximum density. Now, the highway commercial is the least friendly commercial to residential because the only type of residential allowed are units above permitted uses. So you can't have residential use unto itself.
That's Villa, was not highway commercial. Pilots, Villa,
The RV park,
there'll be well, yeah.
that's a
Original,
different use, that's
I mean,
really residential.
as it got developed to the apartments, they know this place.
Yeah, they rezoned the back portion to general commercial.
That's right, I remember we did that. But it was
At
highway,
the time.
was highway commercial originally, right?
Yeah, a lot of it was, yeah. With ribbons of R7, which they resolved. I think even further back in time. So in this case, what we're saying is, okay. You can have those units, but not exceeding 2. And it has to be attached, not detached, and then no dwelling on the same level as non-residential use.
We discussed that before.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
All makes
So
sense.
it's not new, just want to point it out again. And then, psilocybin service center,
There's a commercial where we said it'd be okay if it was hidden or.
Yeah.
Anchored,
Additional.
right?
That was in the river just.
That was the river,
Additional use.
only the river district.
So I never noticed that, because we've obviously never used that.
okay, general commercial. Again, the purpose statements for using the kid right to move and stuff. The daycare stuff. You know what, and so we're. We're feeling we're blowing about permitted uses.
Except we said in the riverfront district. We would allow it if it was behind or
We talked about it,
at least.
but ultimately the planning commission said. We're just gonna stick with what we have in this,
So we did.
yeah.
You might have been at the joint meeting too, or I remember you were gone for one of the conversations about this.
It must have been.
Yeah,
Could have been, yeah.
I'm giving you a way out, Dan, take it.
I'll take it.
Not this old forgetful.
So. Feel free to tell me this is too pedantic, but on A. Is that meant to be an exclusive list or an inclusive list? Like, are you saying that is the only thing that the only things that qualify as animal sales and services, or?
Those have separate definitions. each
Okay,
one.
just making sure.
Yeah.
Great. Cool.
There's a bunch of sub definitions. This is something that we conquered. One of the amendments we did sometime in the past.
Good deal.
Yeah, they wouldn't talk to each other. There was like some in this zoning and some in the other, and then they weren't, yeah, it was awful for,
Past fix.
yeah.
It's been gone.
Same.
Similar. Digital.
I've been in the planning commission as long as Jacob's been the planner.
Did a lot of code amendments.
Yeah.
Note that for multifamily under conditional use permit. This is where we're saying it can only be attached housing. So that means no cottage clusters in the general commercial. Oops.
And we're assuming everywhere the travel trailer park appears, that will be changed then. Every,
Yes, and unless. We started, I'm like, oh, this is a huge burden, but I wanna fix it.
I understand that, but just,
Yeah, it would
if
be.
we change it once, we're gonna change it.
Out. Yeah, out. So we don't have to talk about it every time.
Should.
Now, the one difference in the general commercial zone, when we talk about the single room occupancy, the general commercial zone does not allow single family dwellings or duplexes. And so, and we talked about this, I think at one of the first meetings where we're talking about, okay, how do we want to go? So in the zoning districts that allows the single family dwelling, we treat the single room occupancy with 6 or less in that category, 6 or more in the multifamily standards. Here, where, we don't allow single family dwelling. The single room occupancy development with 4 more units falls into the multifamily bucket of fun. And as we discussed, that's the most conservative approach to take, which the planning commission seemed to favor when we talked about it. When 2 of you weren't here, so.
But then you've got explanatory language in here that's really not part of the rule, instead of units in the yard. So, you know, so that's what I was talking about. How much explanatory language do you want?
Yeah, and this is. And I really rack my brain over this stuff. And I added the single room occupancy stuff last. In this 4-month period, and I figured, well. I'll take a break from it, doing other things and come back to it and reread it with that mind, and maybe there's a way to improve the language.
So the note to self? Is that a note to self then? Instead of 6 or more units for AR though?
And that's just. Because the,
It's not a rule, it's just explanatory.
yeah. And that's just to help the reader, because it's referring to the AR zone for standards, but the AR zone treats the 6 in the multifamily bucket, and a commercial is 4.
Okay,
That's what it's saying.
yeah, so if you're referring to AR zone and it has those standards and there's some standard that's different, you should see why it's different.
Yeah, so that's
Good. That's good there.
Thank you, because I like those statements.
Yeah, I think
Actually,
it's-
that's all
I
right.
like it, they're always helpful, but
Yeah,
how much is too much?
no, I agree, Dan. I did keep an eye for that.
Okay, so
What is different about it? Okay,
now let's take a journey into our light industrial zone. Where we have to allow childcare as a childcare center as a permitted use.
we did that recently.
And so we're removing that from the conditional use. And that's really it. That feels easy. No RV park to change.
No, there is.
Yeah, there is.
And dang it. Like I read
I said that too soon.
No single family in there.
Nope, not in industrial, the caretaker residence, which is its own thing. Okay, so now we're getting to the riverfront district. And so the
Halfway
riverfront,
through.
12 minutes before our brain check time. And then this. Now let's see how much we can do, tell you. So, just as a reminder. The riverfront district is broken into 3 sub-districts. There's the area over the marina, the marinas down here. There is the plaza sub-district, which is where we're sitting here, of course, referred to after the plaza. And then there's the mill sub-district, which is the city undeveloped property down here, the old veneer site. So the marina stuff. This is where we are, not allowing the detached multifamily.
Those kind of. Never mind. You do have boathouses and houseboats.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one place, one of the places, the few places it's noted. So this is another place where cottage clusters would not be allowed. It's a pretty small area. And the idea is that, you know, it's marina centric. We want to make sure that any residential use is efficient. And
It's regulated by the marina rules too, isn't it? I mean, like an HOA, really, as to what.
well, if it's on the water, it's a different category. Yeah, this would be land, the land.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, if it's on the water, then it's just a houseboat, boathouse. Which are permitted outright.
Could they be the single unit style with the centralized kitchen
Zara?
and restroom on the water?
Not by the current definitions and
Houseboat has to be complete with sanitary services.
have all the stuff, yeah.
There's a retail sale of handicraft and tourist goods.
So SROs are not allowed because single family dwelling is not. It's true. Is that right?
Yeah, it's conditional,
Oh, I see.
and then it's
They're not on the water anyway, right?
not on the water.
Not on the
This
water.
is the sub-district.
But you have houseboats and boathouses. So
Yeah, those are allowed in the water,
It's all the same sub-district.
if by definition.
okay, I thought you were saying these definitions only apply to the land part.
The single room occupancy does.
Okay, good.
And this is similar to general commercial. As Jenny said, this is not a place where we allow single family dwellings. And so the single room occupancy rules get put into the multifamily bucket. If it's just 4 of them, it's 6, just like general commercial.
So is there, belabor this, is there a subsection on things for the water? Like, can you do retail sale of handicraft and tourist goods over the water? Does it have to be on the land? Yeah, I'm not saying that, just that one thing, but. Didn't they have a little store out there?
Yeah, they do.
I don't care, just,
Good question. And
it's just all inclusive of everything on the water and not on the water, right?
Seems like it has to be, otherwise boathouses.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we've got boathouse. The boathouse is the,
All kinds of things.
yeah, I mean, it does have to include some water stuff, right? Houseboats, so yeah, it does cover stuff on the water.
Marine related sub facility would be like the outlet, that's all the water.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it would be regulated on the water by the marina rules,
Right.
like HOA rules.
Each marina.
Yeah.
Rules.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Another example, kind of what you're going is. So there was Marks on the channel or Marks on the river. And he's gone now. But before he left, he was, because we were starting to talk about the waterfront, but it wasn't nearly as evolved as it was now. And he was contacting us saying, hey, you know, I want to be a part of this. And so, okay, well, we can allow a floating restaurant. As long as you can meet all the requirements like parking on the land side. So I think that's a good example of something we've had to think about. It never turned it into.
Just had the River Queens going, yeah. That was a restaurant.
And then the standards, pretty similar to the general commercial that we just looked at. And travel trailer parks, another change.
Yep.
So plaza is similar in that we don't allow single family dwellings unless they're a historic structure like the one up here that we added to the list a couple years ago. This is gonna be pretty comparable to, what we've already looked at in the previous ones. Now, you do see some other changes that we haven't seen in other ones, and that's just trying to get it to jive better with some of the other riverfront districts. Really doesn't change the
So just to clarify for me about on the residential or where it starts with residential above non-residential permitted uses, and that there's that list of subcategories that is applying to the above non-residential permitted uses. So it's the saying you could have a duplex above.
Yeah, it can be 2 or 3 or more. 1, 2, or 3 or more. So that's what I is saying. It can be a single family, it can be 2 or 3 or more.
And so in the Plaza District above, you could have a congregate care facility.
And that was taken from a similar. That may have been in the Mill sub-district.
We have to allow that?
Oh, I don't think we have to.
It confused me too to see it in there. I was like, where did this come from?
And that might be something I have to.
We can strike that. I'd like to strike.
I'll have to remember why I put that there. Because some of this is stuff that I worked it on in December
Sure.
or January, so.
The law or something, or?
No, this was just trying to get it to gel with some of the other newer zoning districts. That have a little bit different format. And that's one I can have a better answer for at a future meeting. Because I remember putting a fair amount of time into that. So I can have a good answer.
That's the first place we've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Is that saying that congregate care facility is not allowed anywhere else?
I thought I changed something.
So,
It was
Jacob, this is in
to it earlier.
the single room occupancy in the riverfront district. It's in permitted. But we don't allow single family dwellings.
Yeah.
In the zone law, we allow single room oc-
I'm just gonna.
You just strike this if we want it to be. Only, reserved about where we allow them.
And I think it is because multifamily is permitted.
It's like, what I'm thinking of is the McCormick building, do they have a shared kitchen up there in those units?
I think so, yeah. I think there's quite a few of them down here.
Okay, so you're saying because multifamily is allowed, we have to allow single.
Yeah, we don't want to treat them unfairly compared to multifamily.
It's in the general consumption of congregate housing. The existing use, and in the Plaza District, it's congregate care facility. Is that the same thing?
They are, we should use the same language.
I can see if I've seen that congregate
Yeah.
care facility anywhere else. Relate to it, it's usually busy for anything or something. Congregate housing and mixed use.
It has to do with the elderly care.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're the same. The congregate care facility refers to congregate housing and continuing care retirement community. And then congregate housing is the definition right below that, just says for the elderly. It's a lot more wordy than that. I just paraphrasing.
So where you have it as congregate housing and mixed use and general commercial. The body of congregate care, those are different things.
The same.
Yeah, they're the same.
The definition references both.
Why
So
are we using different terms of the ordinance?
Because it was probably two different terms before and he's just repeating it, so it's an issue we can.
Yeah, I'd say to streamline it,
Figure out which one you wanna use,
Terminology, yeah.
yeah, whichever that is.
give one definition.
Yeah, yeah.
I hadn't seen a congregate care facility before and, cause it wasn't there. It was congregate.
Yeah, I wish I was here when the riverfront, or at the time, the Old Town St. Helens zoning district was created. Cause I've been trying to weed that stuff out over the years.
The language on theaters sounds strange to me too, where it says theaters indoors.
No drive-throughs,
Oh, yeah, there's drive-in is.
the drive-in theater.
Yeah. It's
And
carryover.
you can sell lawnmowers from
That's
upstairs as long as you don't have any outdoor storage.
remarkably specific, yeah. All right,
Trade for the
yeah,
mall equipment sales,
sure.
rentals, repair facility.
Doesn't have to be upstairs.
It doesn't. I don't know where you're getting that. That it has to be upstairs.
So the lawnmower to first floor. Next to your beauty supplies.
Yeah, not as.
Yeah, it's a different, yeah.
Okay, so we can fix the congregate language, find out, why that was put there. Unless we find it,
Age, I wouldn't want
yeah.
theirs.
You need a lawnmower.
No, for congregate care and.
Oh,
Yeah, I was thinking upstairs is probably not ideal.
Yeah.
They got to have an elevator. They have
Right.
to have an elevator and all that stuff. but-
Yeah.
Lots of multi-floor. Facility.
The reason in this zoning district, to answer your question, Jennifer, is this zoning district doesn't allow residential on the first floor. And so that's why that category is the subcategory of stuff above.
Makes sense.
It's, this zoning district is unique in being adamant about that.
That leads into this condition here about under conditional uses. It talks about that.
Yeah, with the explanatory statement.
So back to Jenny, wishing that congregate care facility thing wasn't here in the Plaza district. Would the public see a difference between the general commercial and the Plaza district, which why can't they do it there?
Yeah, yeah,
Second floor,
yeah, that makes sense.
you know, what I mean, I want it around here, but. Like these other. It's shared.
I would agree, and we're just making sure the language is the same throughout.
I don't know if you heard that, but they don't want to strike it from the Plaza sub-district, just make the language consistent.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then, not too much different in for the standards or the special conditions. One thing I would point out is the density calculation is different in this zoning district. It's based on the non-residential area provided a ratio to that rather than just a number per certain amount of area, land area. Otherwise, similar to what we've seen. So it's 8. We have two more zoning districts to go through. We could do that, stop at Historic Heights, or stop now. Or continue to watch Christina suffer. We talk about it longer.
I will say the last 10 pages are mostly validity period. Like there's a lot of pages will cycle through. I'm pointing that out, but
After that,
yeah, but
how do you guys feel about that?
We would keep going until we get to the historic.
Yeah,
site.
finish out these two, last two districts.
when you have your mind in the zoning.
Snacks, I'm good. Pretty good.
Snacks.
I don't know if there's any more left.
Seriously?
Fruity snacks?
The fruity
Snacks, no. How about
Snacks
like?
in general.
You put two
I would
snacks.
never, would never.
Are we in the middle now?
Bill.
So Mill Subs District. Completely undeveloped property.
I don't want.
And this is another place that does not allow cottage clusters.
And that's because we have a master plan for the district that,
Yeah, it didn't feel right for that area. And, you know, we could change that, we could allow it, there's nothing that says we can or can't. Just my first go at it, I'm like, no. I just don't know if that's, if, cause you have limited area there, and so you wanna maximize the potential. But if you think we should allow it, you know, we can. We can fix.
You said it again?
well, I was just asking. I mean, it seemed like. When we had the charrette with the planners and everything, that the master plan for this area was multi-story buildings with businesses on the bottom and residences on the top, right? The whole area. Except for hotel or whatever.
Hotel, restaurant.
So if that's their vision, then no cottage clusters or.
Yeah.
Huts or.
Yeah.
RVs.
Travel trailer.
No travel trailer.
Okay.
In the mill district, do we have to allow single room occupancy?
I think so, because we're allowing multifamily.
Just a different style multifamily.
Well, we have.
Yeah, let me, so within an urban growth boundary, each
The guy next door is gonna rent out rooms.
So within an urban growth boundary, each local government shall allow the development of single room occupancy with up to 6 units on each lot or parcel zone to allow for the development of a detached single family dwelling, and with the number of units consistent with the density standards of a lot or parcel zone to allow development of residential dwellings with 5 or more units. Which we do, and so that's why it's included. So the state saying you have to do this, so that's why it's there.
A diverse community down here.
But note in the statute, you know, when we have the 6 versus the 4, and when do we put it in the multifamily bucket? The mill sub-district does not allow a detached single-family dwelling. It allows the attached, but not the detached. And so that's why it's the 4 or more that goes into that bucket, not the 6 or more. So hopefully that makes it feel a little bit better.
You said the planning commission, when I was not here, decided that residents on the ground floor that were hidden, this was out.
For this sub,
For this district.
yeah.
Yeah, it's cleaner.
And this is, we don't have psilocybin in anywhere downtown. I didn't note that before, but that's something that came from, I think, the joint meeting.
Our first, I think it was the first one of the year, or last year.
Yeah.
Was that last year?
That was that the council supported that. Just to remind you that. I think we're on Holton, last zone. And Holton, it's a little more akin to our general mixed-use zoning district than the ones down here. And it's one that we've tweaked quite a bit since it was first adopted. For example, when it was first adopted, single-family dwellings on the ground level were not permitted.
So
So all those dwellings, including the cool one by Dairy Delish, were non-conforming uses. Like, well, this doesn't make sense, so we fixed that, and so we continue to fix this zoning district.
Arbitrary boundaries that weren't really Holton.
Yeah, they are a bit arbitrary. And I think it's pretty much the same stuff that we've been talking about. But we do allow single family dwellings now, and so the single room occupancy stuff, the childcare stuff, is according to that allowance. One change though, in pulling away from down here is under 5, the whole 500 square feet thing. We're getting rid of that, just sticking with the AR zoning density, which is consistent with mixed use. So then the only zoning district that dictates the amount of residential units you may have according to the non-residential use on the first floor is this one here. We're moving away from that in whole. It doesn't make sense anymore, given how much we've changed it since its first inception. And we can stop there if you want.
We pick up the next one and stuff is sensitive. It's kind of a. Oh, it's just a little short. Okay, never mind.
And the clerk side's pretty straightforward, just adding in maybe digital.
Yeah. Doesn't seem problematic, seems like a good idea.
Okay, so you want to keep it away?
Yeah, I guess so.
Sure.
A lot of these are Scrivener, like I really think they'll be quick,
Yeah.
but
Alright, let's go. Do 15 minutes, let's go.
Okay, so then, our riparian rules. One thing that's really thrown people off is in our codes for certain wetlands. M versus MI, and I think this was just a Scrivener error. They meant the same, but whenever consultants look at it, they're like, what the heck does this mean? Well, if you look at the wetland data, you'll see that M and MI means the same. But unless you haven't worked here for a while and know that inside stuff, you're not gonna know, so well, it's.
Very problematic, local inventory.
ours is,
Yeah. It took about 5 years.
Wow.
The company went out of business
but
and.
these symbols will actually match our maps.
Yeah.
To the main
Yes.
whole-
We can do that.
Yes.
Let's do that.
So it's like,
That sounds good.
So not controversial. And then on 1744. Construction and development is broader. It's not just sharing. The development of the land, so.
We changed the time.
Yeah, so now we start getting,
Half year,
we
made that decision now.
yeah, and there's a table too that you can reference the.
Well, yeah.
Um,
So then chapter 6, 1760. That's where the prefabricated structure stuff comes into play, since state law puts those in the same category. And a really important thing we did here is we have this really hardcore standard with this 10-foot separation between buildings, which has been in there for a long time and was poorly administered previously for the one manufactured home park we had, Crestwood. So it's been just a nightmare. Someone comes in, okay, these lots were developed, these ones aren't. It just so since we created these new rules for distances between buildings when we worked on our duplex rules, it's like, well, we'll just use that instead of this hardcore 10. And that's why you see this language change here to be consistent.
I lived in trailer parks with 6 feet between the trailers. It's not very nice. It's too close.
I mean, we could stick with the 10. It's not the easiest to administer.
Modern manufacturing
in the past.
are better insulated. It's not like you can hear someone coughing next door.
And I don't know if we talked about this before.
I don't think we
This
did.
may have been a detail that we didn't, so it's just probably a good thing to chew on a little bit, just to make sure.
Say we haven't had anybody coming in and say, we want to cram, 100 trailers in here, more professional.
It usually applies to accessory buildings, honestly, is when I see it applicable. Because that's what, people build sheds and so carport, but 10-foot separation.
It's just one or two, it's not like a whole park.
It's mostly built out, but there are some vacant lots still.
Yeah.
So this would be applicable to those vacant lots.
So the park we have by the Humane Society,
Yes.
what is the spacing between them?
Well, it's for the ones that were developed, there's a lot of places where there's not 10 feet. In fact, there's a memo saying this conflicts with the building code, it's gonna be confusing, so I'm just gonna ignore these. That's from the previous plan. Yeah.
So it was in our code, but it wasn't administered.
Well, at least they're being transparent.
So at least we found the memo so we can understand what's going on.
I was asking, is that manufactured home park that we have, is that pleasing to have 10 feet between or 6 feet be just saying? I think it's farther. I think they're more than 6 feet. I'm just gonna walk along the trail.
Some of them are really close.
Yeah.
And they're the little outbuildings that they put on the property or we can do too.
Mhm.
It's giving them some more storage or a garage sort of a situation.
I like 6 feet.
You still have a 20-foot setback from the street and 10 feet from the rear. So it's just between buildings, which would also include the side.
Accessory buildings, I suppose,
And you think it makes it cleaner to change it from 10 to 6? Is that what you're?
Well, it makes it consistent with the newer rules that we created. And that's really the main thing, is just the consistency. I didn't plan on changing this, and sometime while we were working on it, Jenny and I had a conversation like, oh yeah, we should probably consider that, because the 10 feet is kind of hardcore compared to this newer rule that we created.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going up on this being multiple homes, not accessory unit, it's one or two.
And maybe that's what we do, is we keep the 10, but then we reference the 6 foot for accessory buildings. That wouldn't be hard.
You have an accessory building next to the manufacturing, be closer, right?
And it's all structures, so the accessory building, the way this is written, had to be 10 from their mobile home and any other mobile homes and accessory structures. So it's just like really hard to meet,
Yeah,
but if we pull that out,
Yeah, okay.
it would be easier.
with that,
Yeah,
think that's.
That's what's in my mind, is making it easier for somebody who doesn't have a lot of storage to have that extra
Just the
storage.
actual
Yeah.
building.
I feel bad telling people. It says a work on your lot, you can't build it.
You have this setback.
Yeah,
and then
it's
setback,
impossible.
And then you're.
Yeah, exactly.
And now old lots that don't comply, it's horrible.
Oh, yeah, but my neighbor has it, and I'm like, well,
we
it
all-
was inconsistently applied, I'm sorry.
Yeah, light and space, you know.
Yeah.
It's the light and space thing, 6 feet's too close. You're in the shadow of the other trailer.
Okay, so I think I'm kind of seeing a consensus. Keep the 10 keep the 10 for the principal living unit, which could be an RV, that's why I call it a living unit.
Yeah.
And then the 6 foot for accessory structure.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds.
Okay.
That's kind of consistent. It makes another thing you have to worry about for that, but. All right. That's all right.
Oxymoron kind of.
I see we've struck all kinds of language in this next section. What's going on here?
Yeah, and that's because it's antiquated by state law.
Great. Sounds like an excellent reason to get rid of it.
Well, this is the state law that replaced it, the green. Cool.
And then in this other chapter, this is where we're talking about being able to be occupied by a residential trailer, mobile home, or manufactured home, or prefabricated structure or travel trailer. And that's where the manufactured dwelling term comes into play. I knew it was somewhere in there. All right, so Mercy or move on to parking?
Probably get through parking with 30.
Mine's gonna blow it up.
It's also fine to stop. That's totally chill. I don't think we're gonna get through all of it tonight, so we can withdraw it.
We can probably whip it out pretty fast another time. Let's do that. Stop here. Yeah. Literally.
Thank you.
Keep your papers so Christina doesn't have to print more of them.
So Christina, could you pull me out?
Okay.
Thank you for suffering.
Good job, Dave.
It wasn't too bad. All my money ago. Brief questions about the sign permits or temporary use things.
On the planning director's decision, so, Wygant partition, so he ended up partitioning what we approved on when he was here last month's hearing, that's.
The other side,
Oh, okay.
he owned other lots.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was an administrative decision. And so you have the 4 lots on one side. He's gonna sell to a developer to build row housing, attached single family dwelling units, so you'll have 4 skinny lots. On the other side is the attached duplexes that he's proposing, that he's doing.
Ones that came into before.
The variance.
Yeah.
On 13.
Yeah.
As well.
The 12th will be townhomes.
Okay. Anything, planning activity report from March that you want to talk about, or you remember?
Not that I can think of, but we have the semi-annual report for the city council, which will be more interesting than this. And there's stuff that happened in March that we'll talk to the planning commission about after that presentation, probably in May. It's, it's only 15-minute presentation, so it's not gonna be long and arduous.
For information, did you have any for information stuff?
On the point of the proactive items.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I skipped it.
We discussed at the joint meeting the vacant storefronts. And Erin, I don't know if she's the president of the chair or the chair, what her title is on Main Street. I had some commitments that we haven't been able to get back to beyond casual conversations about it. We've discussed how we thought we would like to structure the committee, and that might be 2 or 3, probably 2 planning commissioners. Brandon Sundin agreed to, Commissioner Sundin, Counselor Sundin agreed to be on the committee. Erin, I think, would like to have herself and 1 other member, and then having 2 or 3 citizens on the committee. So on the proactive items, we really need each of us to pick something. I just don't know that it's realistic for me to chair the vacant storefronts and the architectural standards. So if anybody would like to jump in, if anybody has any interest in also being on the vacant storefronts, Scott has agreed to be on that committee with me. Some interest as well. Do you? Okay, good.
I'd also be happy to.
And on the proactive committees, we have to stay under quorum rules. So like when we did HB 3115, if we were gonna be over, we would have to meet separately. So we didn't violate any of that. But I fully support Mr. Preheim's recommendation on the plaza, but it's like taking on another, we'll have to decide whether we want that to be a proactive item, but then we need somebody to chair that item. So as we add proactive items, we need somebody to chair those, so.
If we have, the plaza brick, county property,
Right.
so.
That was gonna be my question. I think it's a good idea. Do we have the authority to do it?
Control over,
Well, in casual conversations with county commissioner,
this is gonna be a recommendation anyway, but.
yeah, I don't think that would be a stumbling block. I think they would like to give up any responsibility to it. For me, historically, I'd like to see if we did some kind of paver project to mimic what used to be there. The Historical Society has recently acquired some images of what the plaza originally looked like, and I think we could honor that and mimic those with the color of the pavers. So it's just,
I think that would be good.
I think it's fantastic.
I mean, it's like tromping across here. I always park in front of my building. I gotta tromp across the mud, and I always think about it every time. Like, I know that's kind of been mentioned a lot, and I think it's something that we should consider if somebody would like to.
Back to your point, this first, you're gonna take these proactive items on, it was like a 1 item at a time. We
Yeah,
got to that
yeah.
one, and then we didn't have any other ones, but do we wanna have to focus our energy on one?
Well, where I got stuck, honestly, on the architectural standards. For me, when previous commissioners were on here, I thought it was too far reaching to put architectural standards across the city. I think is unrealistic.
We want to just pick a district and work on that.
And we could, yeah, we could, and at the joint meeting. It seemed to me, in my opinion, that people were surprised that. The historic review didn't include the entire historic district. It only is this little tiny plaza district. Like, for instance, there's a group of investors that are gonna come in and they're gonna bulldoze the Ross House built in 1885. It's not a city landmark. Unless the way I understand the process is unless they come in for a street vacation or something, we won't even see it. They'll just do their project and it's not within our purview to even review anything.
Not in the Riverfront District, so architectural guidelines don't apply.
Yeah.
I think it's a conditional use though,
So that
multifamily.
would,
So you'd get it as a, thank you, just confirm that now.
What teeth would we have to?
It's the wrong-
Well, you'd have the conditional use permit criteria, which. Not a lot.
yeah, so,
Not
I mean, I'd like to
for
see-
but-
No, yeah, not for architectural standards.
I'd like to see maybe that I guess my point is, I would like to see that architectural standard proactive item maybe be amended to. Let's start with seeing if we could extend review criteria across the entire district. Or somewhere there instead of just arbitrarily saying,
Oh, yeah.
what.
When I was in graduate school, there was a graduate student that did a question. 6 years getting into masters. You gotta narrow the question down, so it's tackle.
Right, so anyway, I fully acknowledge that we agreed that we were gonna probably tackle one item at a time, and then we wanted discussing another, so I don't know how we want to address it. I'm okay with more than one as long as there's a different chair for different items.
Well, we probably should have everybody here to.
Yeah.
make the decision, I suppose.
Maybe that's where we're headed.
One thing to remember about the plaza is a historic resource. And so the changes would ultimately require formal approval by you, just like if it was a building that was a historic resource.
So we can approve our own plan.
That's probably.
That's what I'm hearing.
Or no, the planning commission's plan, the historic committee would approve that. Different group.
Or we all of a sudden add a whole bunch of places to the city landmarks.
My 2 cents on the plaza, I think it's a great project, but there has to be some startup money to do some design effort, whether you're doing sponsors for a brick, like you still need a design.
Yeah.
The process, and where does that come from?
In your experience, are there any grants that might?
So I was thinking about that. So Travel Oregon last cycle funded a portion of the Riverwalk project because it was accessibility improvements. And if they continue to support that as a priority, like that is a Travel Oregon fundable project. You know, we just have to wait for the funding cycles.
Like Columbia City, they sell bricks right now for their Veterans Park, $75 a brick.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought a brick for my kids that are now 45 years old in the Pioneer Courthouse Square, like bricks down there, so.
I think selling individual papers or bricks is a really good idea. I think it's a good way to get people invested, tangibly feeling connected to the architecture. But yeah, it is a matter of who funds that initial piece. I think there's probably also a level there between the county and the city where I'm sure the county is happy for someone else to do the work. I don't know if they want to pay for that initial design.
Well, I think our scope of the work would be considering design, at least overall design, general design, fit the historic pictures and some limitations we'd like to see match those things. And then this is packaged now, then it's gotta have get money for the architecture, landscape architecture, or whatever, and the funding and all that stuff. We can't really complete it. We can only get kind of the concept, right?
As far as what the commission can do to support the project, I feel like you're right, but you're kind of on the. You know, reviewing the design aspect, you're not gonna go out and write a grant for Travel Oregon, it's just not appropriate, so I feel like
Conceptual.
there isn't, yeah.
It just seems like a conversation starter, almost like to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, we talked to the county and see what they're minimal to it, things like that.
Yeah.
Whether the city. Yeah, I don't know, city councilors would want to have their input on things like
Or
that.
do we just, instead of a proactive item, is there an appropriate way to make a recommendation to the county that the planning commission would like to see this happen? The historic review,
I mean, could we?
source review would support this, something like that. It's like just a statement from the planning commission to say, we have an interest in this.
How can it happen if you didn't give them a little something?
Well, but I could see taking photos and sort of packaging that in a brief, but clear memo and saying. I don't know if it would formally be a resolution. I don't know if we can do resolutions, but effectively saying. Here's a statement from the planning commission that we think this would be a good idea. County, it's your land. Would you like to start? I mean, at least that's a place to start the conversation.
And we get support from the tourism committee and, you know,
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
people, they're backing us and then we go, oh, it's not just these planning commissioners that are thinking of stuff. That would be part of it.
Right.
It's a little package of support and conceptual design and then Jenny's gonna write the grant. proposal and-
You got a golden pen for the grants?
She's good at it.
Yeah, she is good at it.
Then the architectural standard, that's kind of just planaries, right? More. You're just writing things and then the planner goes, yeah, it's good. And then they take it to the commissioners, the council and
Yeah,
do all the work
it's a little heavier lifting for sure,
for the planner.
and it's potentially complex. One of the complexities is the historic district it wasn't intended as a regulatory district originally, it was just an inventorying boundary. The area here that we have architectural standards doesn't allow single-family dwellings. And when you get outside of the riverfront district where you do allow single-family dwellings, because it allows single-family dwellings and the various protections for those and duplexes, that's where it becomes a balancing act. And when I produced that memo a while back, that highlights, at least the things at the time, there's more now of the things that we have to consider.
So what would it take to an historic district, for instance?
To expand, to make the regulatory footprint
Yeah.
the same as the
Same as
historic
the
footprint.
historic.
Yeah.
It seemed like city council in that joint meeting was
Right,
support.
and I have to imagine there's a way to do that while acknowledging that the core district, what is currently the riverfront, will continue to be non-single family, and the peripheral would allow single family, but there's still, I imagine there's still a way to say we are going to apply, should we choose to, certain architectural standards from regulatory standpoint.
Yeah, sure, there's a way.
It's just complex.
It would have to be different standards than
Yes.
what we have here.
Yeah, you can't just cut and paste it totally.
Well, and the same thing, you don't want it the opposite, have a single family residence, all of a sudden a business opens up.
Right.
And it's in a district.
And then there's rules about opting in, opting out,
Sure.
stuff like that, which,
1984, when the district was, the application was made. You look at the papers historically, it was a hot topic then. It's like people there was a certain amount of people that opted in and then they were like, wait a minute, I don't want you to tell me that I can't paint my house purple. Can't do this to my house. And so a bunch of people opted out quickly. That's why you see those plastic signs in some areas around, like on the Ross House, I forget what it's called, something besides the Ross House, tumble, something or other.
Is there a way you can incentivize?
Yeah, I think,
That's the other thing.
Yeah, imagine.
like I said in the joint meeting, I think it's an educational piece, and Restore Oregon already has curriculum on that can teach people what it is and what it isn't. So, I mean, it's a personal preference too. I'd be very proud to put a plaque on my house that says,
Yeah,
Russell Dodd House and part of the district.
I mean, also grant funding for your restoration.
None of the vacant storefronts, it's a real collaborative thing with lots of different.
And that's gonna be a very long-term project, I think, because it is gonna be really, take architectural standards and blow it up. It's gonna be a huge, I think.
well, particularly if you get to not just incentivizing storefront use, but penalizing non-use, then people are going to get very pissy about that.
I mean, I felt optimistic after the joint meeting, but city council, I think, was in too, so did you? Yeah, I did too.
If I could go back to the plaza, I would say, try to get the parks and trails, since it's an inventory park.
The support group.
Yeah, just to get more coalition.
So are you suggesting that we draft some kind of, whatever the mechanism is of support, and then the Parks Commission will also do that? We would.
I'm not sure how it would go. I mean, I cannot speak for them, and yes.
Does it need to be that formal? Can it be a phone call? mean, can we say, are you interested in forming a committee for us to include, everybody work together, community?
I also want to say that, I mean, with, we discussed on the Rose Garden over here. There is some money available to develop that too into a different park, and maybe, have it in the same type of standards that, design standards for both of them.
Well, and I saw a potential plan of that before COVID. It was phenomenal, but
Yeah. This,
Yeah, that's a good point. Both owned by the county, right next to each other. It serves as an event space. The design should be for both. Why would you do one without the other?
Otherwise, we'll just have to come back and do the other one years from now. That would be silly.
One has a lot of trees that aren't gonna BOGO with bricks. So how do you line those?
Make a brick circle around a tree.
There you go.
replant,
There's more bricks to sell.
replant trees that are appropriate in location.
Yeah.
those trees will conform to that.
That's what I got. That got us anywhere.
No, good conversation.
Stuff to think about.
I'm willing to meet with the county commissioners and just gauge their level of interest on the.
I think it's financial interest is what you're really wanting, and I don't wanna speak for the county, but I think they have their hands full with projects right now.
They do.
And so it's very unlikely that they're gonna be able to financially support the project. That's my take.
I think work we could do if it doesn't get buried and lost is put together a conceptual plan. And the reason for it, the backup of the historic plan. And some support at the time that we at least have it on hand
That'll support a grant application,
when,
all of that effort.
yeah, when the monies could be available.
Right.
And then go to the county, you got any money? No, they will. Maybe somebody can write a grant, but at least there's something, it's like the streets plan.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but we have tourism right here. Can we? Is there any way to coordinate with tourism on the, some kind of project on,
Financially,
yeah, something
On which, the
on the brick plaza, on the, either, both.
Well,
Both
I've had
either.
a lot of conversations about that. And they're pro, doing something. So I think that, at one point in time, I mean, we have a very beautiful scape for the Rose Garden that we already paid an architect to do. And, Casey was, for that plan. I mean, they do have their hands full with with the old school right now, but, there's probably tourism funds available for developing something in that Rose Garden into, maybe that's the starting point. And then out here in the plaza, I think that we would also probably be able to contribute to that in some way, whether it's, selling bricks like Pioneer Courthouse Square does. Or, but it's kind of bizarre having that circle in the middle of the plaza, which we use, but it's kind of a weird.
That's where I think we could mimic it, because that was a fountain historically. I think we could mimic that pattern. I mean, it almost looks like a cross in the old photos. It's with a big circle in the center. So if you could change the color of the papers to mimic what was there, I think.
Yeah, I think those, you look sort of two-toned in the photos, right? Like it's all like almost a black and tan color scheme.
I mean, I don't know how much it would cost to do that, but I think we could do it. And, it would be such a benefit, but it's just raining like it.
Yeah.
If it's raining during any events, it just turns into, really, it's a hazard walking across the plaza at times. I just almost wiped out myself. But you guys would need to decide what design you wanted so that we could get an architect to do a drawing and like take it forward and say, this is kind of what we're looking, even if people wanted to contribute something on paper, I could have someone draw something up that. You know, yeah, see, like, good, or so that, because they're not gonna do anything that they can't visualize.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
they won't-
Just give them a call, hey, you're gonna do something we don't know we can do.
Right, yeah. To them and say, hey, this is what we're looking at right now, would you be in favor of this? Because we've talked about paving that.
Well, and I can help with historical photos of the plaza through the Historical Society.
I think you just need a scope of work from a firm, like an architectural firm
I thought that,
that dictates the process, the iterative process that you expect to see during design, which is coordination with you and they need to put a dollar value on how much it's gonna cost to prepare that design and someone's gotta front that.
yeah,
And if that's tourism, great.
Tina, you said the design, architect design, that for the Rose Garden was, you thought they did a good job and they were,
A real architect.
yeah.
So we've got that design somewhere.
So
we have that.
what I've seen is a concept. I've seen a pretty picture. I don't know if there's a construction document drawn, like, I don't know
There's
that.
no point in doing that until we get a go ahead.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's a difference. We gotta,
But if there's something conceptually,
David, I do have printed some things out and she gave them to me, I believe, still have them, or I'm not sure if I give them back.
Well, we can print more.
well, I was just thinking if we've got a concept that people like. We could give that to an architecture firm, or we could go back to the firm that did this and say, can we expand this concept so it's. Coherent to something that would apply at the center. Yeah.
I guess I'm just thinking of these three proactive items. They're all important. They're all, somebody's passionate about them here. I think actually the plaza one is the simplest one, the quickest. Really when it comes down to it.
Yeah, the one that we need to participate in the least.
Yeah, it's the one that we have the least.
Yeah, no, that's, I could.
It's not gonna get people angry and it's not gonna get people angry.
So, do you wanna add that to the list and just have it on the agenda?
Put it on the agenda, yeah, it's fine.
Can we
Just add it to the grocery list of proactive
add
items?
it to a proactive item? Are you comfortable with us adding it as a proactive item? That's
Yeah,
part of the discussion.
Yeah, so I guess,
Well, it took Brady a year to
Much-
make that happen.
we're so focused on these other things, whenever you bring that up, it's like, okay, we already got this going.
That's been the hesitation of starting it, is that we have these other two things that have kind of
Well,
stalled.
I don't know if having them all on the same agenda is confusing to people.
Yeah, it depends how you wanna look at it. It's just, if it's listed, it's something that,
We're gonna address
we
tonight.
wanna actively have an opportunity to talk about. So if it's on the agenda, oh yeah, should we talk about this today? Yes or no? And
Working on them concurrently, yeah.
The testimony too, or interest of the public, they see it on the agenda that's published and go, oh, they're discussing that, I need to go down and talk about it,
I
so.
think we're gonna pick one, we should have that on. That's it. And
I wouldn't wanna take the others off.
we'll put them in parentheses for future workers.
I think we're actively working on the vacant storefronts,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
deny any of that, but.
Yeah.
I guess it's spread too thin, so we're not
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
so everybody agrees to add it?
Yes.
are we taking architectural standards off until there's a new chair or until vacant storefronts is over? Since you're sort of chairing that, you're sort of leading it. I mean, I'm just back.
No, I appreciate it, yeah, I appreciate that, because I feel like I'm overwhelmed by having both of them.
They're not gonna get, it doesn't need to be on the agenda for an update. Nobody's updating.
But there's such a sense of urgency on architectural standards because there is no hell lots left now, but there's still a potential of bulldozing houses and.
But you also see how slow moving code amendments are
Yes.
with this process.
Yes.
And so, yes, there's something on the horizon, but is that realistic it's just not realistic.
We do not, are not active on it, we might be losing stuff.
Well, let me ask this question about architectural standards, so. So it seems to be like. A fundamental stumbling block is to actually have enforceable architectural standards for the whole historic district, again, we need to expand the regulatory boundaries. Is that a decision we make, or is that a city council decision? Because if the answer is that it's city council, we can find out if they have any interest in doing it or not, and if they don't, then it kind of tells us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something the council would have to adopt.
Right, so is there a way for us to get a sense of whether they have any enthusiasm for this?
Well, that's what Jennifer was talking about at the last joint meeting.
Okay.
It was on the agenda.
Okay, and I wasn't here for that
But it
meeting.
was
That's fair.
sort of at the end, there were other items, so I don't know if it was.
And it's been discussed many times.
Meetings.
Yeah, and
It's changed,
it's been mixed.
yeah.
Sure.
I think that's because like I was explaining, it's that's so far reaching, I'm right. This is too big.
Well, you have to present it with the reach that is practical.
Yeah.
So it is.
This did remind me something, quick go back on the amendments. I should have mentioned this, it's not something it's something. It's not a new section we didn't get to, but I did mention that, in the manufactured home section, there's a specific provision that says no manufactured home or prefabricated structure, and this is allowed by state law, shall be allowed within an historic district or abutting a property with a designated landmark.
That's something.
That's something, yeah.
So that was important. I want to make sure I got that out there.
Oh,
So that's a subtle architectural thing. Because you're saying, well, in these places, that's what we don't want. And we will get in trouble for that because it is allowed by state law. So that's something.
so we're. All right. We're done.